All right, in this video, we're going to talk about how to choose the proper pack. So this is the most commonly asked question is even when people see these in person, they ask, God, I got this in mind. I don't know which one I quite want to get. Well, we've gotten enough of these to people. We've put enough animals on here ourselves. We've got a general idea, but just know there is no hard right or wrong. That's the first thing I want to tell you is that this is truly your own and you get to create whatever it is you'd like to look. This is your blank canvas. That was no pun intended, but this is your palette to work on. So I'm going to tell you the differences. I'm going to tell you what we've seen, what we recommend, but there's always in betweens. And so if you have any questions or recommendations, you guys can totally reach out to us, let us know. We're going to be happy to help hook you guys up with what would look the best for you. So simply explaining these back to back, this is the Trapper Original and this is the Trapper XL. So out of the gate, you can tell that this is larger here on my left, on your right, but basically this is only 6 inches taller and only 2 inches wider, but that makes quite a bit of a difference. The canvas themselves is only going to be about 3 inches taller, maybe 4 inches taller and 2 inches wider, but that makes a significant difference in what you can be able to do with these packs. So for example, a general, I don't know if it's a rule, but the general recommendation is basically the regular size is going to be ideal for deer skulls, for skulls such as bighorn sheep. Let me show, well, you can probably, I'm going to have a yard sale here before I know it. This is a bighorn sheep onto into the original. And of course that could work on the XL, right? You could see how that could work on the XL, but the skull doesn't overwhelm the pack. It really just looks well. You see your pack and you see your animal. And so that's kind of the balance is you want to be able to see your animal, but you want to see what your animal is being displayed on. And so a sheep is about the largest skull I'd recommend to go on to the original. Deer skulls are awesome. Antelope, mountain goat is right here behind me. And an antelope skull, did I say antelope? I meant mountain goat. Did I say mountain goat? Okay. Mountain goat looks great on here. Antelope is about the same size of a skull. And so you can see that that actually looks quite well. If it were to go on here, wouldn't necessarily look as good. The pack just is really far bigger than it needs to be for that skull. However, we've had people purchase the XL to specifically put their mountain goat full body cape onto. So if they have their whole mountain goat skin, they don't want to pay $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 for a full body mount. They can now take the cape, have their taxidermist roll it up and have that face sticking out the front, just like it looked like when you packed it out of the hills. But now in that case, you'd want a larger palette to work on. If you were to put the mountain goat onto the original size and have this whole entire cape, you wouldn't really see what your mountain goat was tied to because you'd have this giant puff ball sticking out, covering this frame entirely, and you just wouldn't necessarily be able to show off the old look that you're going for as well. And the look we feel like we like to coin is like it looks like great grandpa hiked this mountain goat out of the hills. And so that's kind of the unique thing there. Again, deer, we really like the look of it onto the original. This is just an old skull cap, but you can see that a skull cap now becomes like a decoration rather than just this being screwed into a piece of wood in your garage or maybe even onto a wooden plaque, although those look great as well. Even without the skull and without necessarily the leather wrapped skull plate, this now fits right into this really old look because you've got this old skull plate still here, not covered, just raw like it was hiked out of the hills. This is exactly how my dad hiked his animal out of the hills is he cut off the skull plate. He never mounted this animal. He used the cape for another deer from the past, and now he loves this piece because it looks like the way his deer looked when he hiked it out, and it's in a really old time look as well. I'm going to show you why basically on the wall I would put one more rope in front of that so that can lean forward. But common question, let me just demonstrate why the XL for a large skull versus the Trapper Original for smaller skulls. If we were to take this elk skull, now this is a replica. You can see it's got the studs here. This was for a big shed bull that I found. You can see that if I were to, I'm going to switch hands. If I were to put an elk onto an original pack, just about covers your entire pack. And now imagine, huge beams coming out of there it's going to be quite long. And so this is the original here, and you can see that this elk looks far more balanced here on the right. So hopefully that's a way to answer the question that we get about, well, do I need an XL for an elk, or can I just use an original? You could try an original. It just isn't going to look as good as you'd hope, because that skull is going to just drown out your smaller frame. Another question we get is, do I need to get an XL for elk sheds? Here we've got a pair of elk sheds tied onto a pack. Now this is a really cool look. A lot of guys, again, just put their sheds onto their bedroom floors or stack them up in their garage or in their basements. And basically, you can see that this just really complements the pack really well. So the sheds are being showed off in a unique way. The pack is still being able to be seen. If you were to put these long beams onto a smaller pack, it just may not look as well as you'd like to. But then if you look to on your left side of the screen, these are deer sheds, and the deer sheds look great without necessarily being on a trapper pack. Another option with deer sheds, this is just a nice tall 3-point. You could take these sheds like this, and you could also hang them off the top. Flare them out a little bit like that. Now you hardly ever see sheds like that, but it kind of just gives you this feeling like they were packed out of the mountain. That's kind of the look that we're going for. So that kind of covers the size, hopefully. The last thing I'll say, people say, well, what color? That's totally up to you, but a couple of guidelines can be trying to create contrast is what we recommend. And so even when I tied on this mountain goat, I didn't want this mountain goat to be on a brown pack, because I didn't know if those horns would get lost in the brown. I wanted those horns to be able to pop. And so of course white is going to pop on the tan. There's no doubt about that. But these these black horns aren't going to pop as well onto the brown. And even though they still can, it's just the look I wanted to go for. And so you want to try to be able to create contrast off of the wall it's going on. And so this barnwood wall here, you can tell that the brown pops pretty well, and so does the tan pretty well, because I made that barnwood wall specific to not favor too much brown or tan on each side. But depending on your barnwood wall that's going on that, just be conscious. I want to have the pack pop off the wall, and I want to have the animal pop off the skull. A guy got a brown one from me to do a pack mount on because the antlers were tan, they were in the velvet, and he wanted to have those antlers pop against this darker palette. Whereas when something is dark or hard horns, you can see that this really contrasts really well on the tan. So between what you're putting on the pack and wanting to have the pack contrast on the wall, hopefully that gives you an idea of how to find what works best for you. Again, there's no rules to any of this. You guys get to be the artists as well and really recreate your memories in the look that you want to, and that's what's so great. So that kind of wraps up choosing between the XL and the original, as well as what colors. If you guys have questions, of course, please reach out to me. Thanks a lot for paying attention, and appreciate you guys' support.